What's up, everyone, and welcome to Project X Talk, an Xbox podcast, episode number 140, presented by Save the Game Media. I'm your host, Kevin. Today, we're going to be talking about the FTC versus Microsoft, Jim, if I'm lying, I'm dying, Ryan, and so much more. But on a sad note, it is Mr. Physical Copies' final air quotes regular Project X Talk. Ethan, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing really good. It's been what now? 2-3 weeks since I've been on the show, and
Been a
it's
while.
one of the reasons why I'm leaving is just because my work schedule is absolutely wild, and it's not fair to anybody for me to consistently not show up and not be able to keep up to date on all the gaming news. So I'm taking a break. I'm still gonna stick around though. I'm probably gonna bug you guys when the live reacts start. Right, I'm definitely going to want to be there for Game Awards, the most fantastic night of the year.
Yes.
I'm probably going to fill in here on Project X Talk whenever either you or our new host will not be able to come. So definitely not the last you'll see of me, but I'm doing good.
Yes, absolutely. We are going to have a jam-packed episode, like I said. And speaking of jam-packed, that leads me to the next announcement.
That was a good one.
Yeah,
That was a good one. I like
thanks.
that.
I was on the fly. I was on the fly there, right?
That was awesome.
The new regular co-host of Project
roll,
X Talk
please.
and Xbox podcast is Jam-packed Sam himself. Everyone, he's been a guest before. He was the first person I thought of when I was like, I need someone that brings some quality to the show. To match
getting that with me.
I was gonna say to match Ethan's level. All right,
we're upgrading here, folks.
So next week, Sam will be joining me going forward. Make sure you're following him on Twitter and his own YouTube channel. If you aren't familiar with him, go check him out.
On
yes,
TikTok.
Yeah, he's huge, man. He's a great content creator in his own right. So looking forward to doing the show with him week in, week out. But remember, if you're new here, this is an Xbox podcast. We're live every Thursday night right here on YouTube. If you can't catch us live, we post every Friday morning on your favorite podcast service of choice. While you're over there, please drop us that 5-star review, whether it's Apple, Spotify, whatever. We just need it for the algorithm. It helps us. And you'll see the official tweet for this announcement on Saturday. But if you rate us 5 stars on Apple or Spotify or subscribe to the YouTube, all right, there's 3 chances there. You are automatically entered. Well, if you send me the screenshot, you'll be automatically entered for a deluxe edition of Starfield.
What?
Yes, we are giving away a digital deluxe edition for Starfield that comes with the early access. So if you want to play it 5 days early, there's your chance. Maybe stay tuned to our No Limit show for another giveaway. Maybe their big fall game. Maybe you should get those reviews in for both shows just to be safe. Tweet at Save Game Media, throw it in the Discord. You'll be entered. We love to support you guys. All right. Can I enter, says Ghostly March. No. Co-hosts are not eligible.
I've already asked this question before, Kevin, many a times.
Co-hosts are not eligible and make us look like we were rigging the thing. Anyway, if you want to interact with us more, please come join the Discord. Link is in the description down below. And if you want to support us further, get early access to Save the Game Media content, head over to patreon.com/SaveTheGameMedia. Choose the tier that's right for you, like our current Patreon supporters. So thank you to Bucky Blue, Fabulous Brianna, Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, Brianna's wife, Nikolai at Night, Cypher, Primus, Brendan Myers, Marcus O'Neill, Lillian, Mimi J, The Snack Network, David Hartright, Dave Harp, the Xbox Expansion Pass, and Alpaca Tom. Thank you all for your support. We appreciate each and every one of you. Ethan, we got a jam-packed episode, like I mentioned, but we got to start the episode like we do. One of the final time I'm going to ask you this question. Just kidding. Let's go around the room. What have you been playing, my friend?
Kevin, let's talk about Diablo 4 first, because I know you definitely want to talk about it. Diablo 4, I'm not a huge Diablo guy. I played 3 a little bit, never really played 2 or 1. Diablo 4 is really, really fun. I really enjoy this game. This is the first game of its type that I've really delved into and gotten deep into. I love some of the mechanics. I'm playing Barbarian. I know you're also playing Barbarian.
Let's go.
Tanky, high damage, very big hitting move sets. Really, really fun. I love the different characters. I love the different enemies that you can encounter. I love just traversing the map and discovering little mysteries. This game is really, really fun. Now, again, I'm not a huge fan of Diablo. So I'll kick it off to you, somebody who probably has more experience in Diablo as a whole. How does Diablo 4 compare to the other ones?
Favorably. I really like Diablo 4. I don't think I like it more than Diablo 2 or 3 at this point. I think that the story was really good. I'm struggling in the end game so far because I've beaten the campaign and I'm playing with Kyle, who is by far way better at the end game so far than me. He's doing like 600,000 damage a hit with his
I don't know
necromancer, and
how
I'm
people do
like,
this.
yo, I just hit 11. Like, all right. I kind of get murdered in these end game nightmare dungeons. He's carrying me a lot, just trying to get some gear. And every time I play, I have a fun time. I get better. Like I see the numbers go up. Do I
Right.
feel like I am like incredibly stronger or not really so far? And I'm looking up builds, I'm following the things, and I'm like, okay, eventually this has got to click together. So far, my barbarian isn't really like the way I want him to feel, but hopefully he'll get there by the end. And this is a game, like I said, for a long while now. I'm gonna be playing this like the rest of the year. It's a game I'm just gonna constantly be playing, constantly on the SSD, not going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I've never felt too overpowered in this game. I've always felt like I could handle different conflicts, but it starts to turn into a slog after a while, especially doing dungeons. I will say, playing multiplayer makes this game 100 times better. Playing solo is fun, but playing multiplayer really is what this game's bread and butter is. I think I played a little bit with Garrett. I went through some dungeons that I could not complete solo, and we were able to do it with ease. It was really fun. Really good combat, really good waves in the boss battles. I think it was the Brood Mother, this spider that was spawning these like spider people that would blow up and create 30 more spiders. Like I could not do that solo. It was impossible. But having another person there was really, really fun. So I definitely want to get more. I need to join your clan. I know you and your brother have something going right now. I definitely want to join in on
Yeah,
that.
come join the Save the Game Media
Because
clan.
I don't see myself playing this game a lot more solo. I think I've pretty much seen all I've wanted to see playing it solo. I definitely want to tackle some of the more difficult areas as a team with different people.
Yeah, listen, Kyle plays a ton. He will gladly carry people through some stuff, get you some better level gear, get you to places you're not supposed to be going yet. So we can have some good times. I Save the Game Media Clan. Everyone come over and join. But
Beautiful.
yeah, Diablo 4 is still trucking along. What else you been playing?
Oh, what else have I been playing? Like a Dragon Ishin.
Ooh,
I
okay.
picked that up on Xbox probably a week ago, playing it on and off. I'm enjoying it. It's a Yakuza game. Yakuza games are really fun. I'm not enjoying it probably as much as I do Like a Dragon. I'm not too far along in it though, so I don't have much to say. I like the combat. I like that you can do different sort of move sets with the sword, either sword and pistol, sword or just pistol. I think it's a little cheesed though. Like if you just use the pistol, you can just spam shot people and it staggers them and they can't really fight you. So I've stopped using the pistol. I've mostly been fighting with swords. But the game is fun. It's beautiful. There's a lot of really cool stuff to look at. Some of the environments are really fun. And it really plays like a traditional Yakuza game, just set in this Edo period of Japan. And I think that's really, really cool. So other than that, the other game that I've been playing is, I need to remind myself, Horizon Zero Dawn. I actually just trucked through probably 5.5 hours today.
Ooh, okay.
I started it up again, and I stand by my statement, Kevin, that the combat in this game is good.
The combat is so bad.
Listen, my favorite thing about the combat in this game is that you can scan these robots and you can find the different components on their body, and you can change how the combat is going based on targeting different components of the body. You can shoot off different parts of their weapons, their armor, this or that to create weak points. I love it. I think it's great. There's strategy that goes into the combat. It's full of action. There's a lot going on, especially when you have a lot of robots around you. I will say sometimes it can get a little frustrating because you get hit a lot by these giant metal monsters. Thank you, Sam. See, Sam's a man of culture. He understands. But you get staggered a lot. It can get overwhelming at times, but I really, really enjoy the combat. The combat with other humans is kind of boring. It's really easy. Like there's not really much of a challenge there.
It's the only
I
combat
think
I like.
this game really shines though when you're fighting those massive bosses, those giant worm things that come out of the ground, or the big crocodiles, or the other crazy metal. I think I just ran into something called a death machine. It's like an ancient thing full of weapons and guns, and you can shoot the different guys. That was an awesome fight. So this game's fun. Okay, I think I did like 8 trophies today. I played through about 5.5 hours, bunch of story missions, doing a lot of side stuff, cleared up a lot of the map. So really enjoying jumping back into that. And I talked a little bit in the Discord before, and I think I'm going to go on a little bit of a PlayStation kick going forward now that I'm not going to be a regular host on XTalk. I definitely want to dive into their library a little more. I got Final Fantasy 16 downloaded, bought that today. Gonna want to finish up Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, obviously. Need to finish up Stray. So lots of different games that I'm going to be jumping into my next few days off. So I'm really excited for that.
I don't agree with you on Horizon, but you know, it is what it is. I will say Forbidden West, I still maintain, has a better story than Zero Dawn. So I'll be curious to hear your thoughts about it. Share in the Discord. Let me know which one you like better. I like Forbidden West story more. I think the combat is the same and everything else mediocre, but no, not for me. I can respect that. Will I play the third one? Yes. Will I pay for the third one? No. No. All right. So let's get into what I've been playing. Quickly, I want to touch on a game that I am probably 1/3 of the way through, and that is the Dark Pictures anthology House of Ashes. So, Ethan, you every week that I've been playing these super massive games, you haven't been on the show. I played The Quarry. You weren't.
Wait, you played the?
Yeah.
After all this time, I wasn't here when you actually played it.
You weren't here. Short recap. I thought it was just all right. I didn't think it was anything special. Then I played the Devil and Me. Their best game by a mile. That game is way better than anything else they put out. Now I'm playing House of Ashes. This is the shortest one in the series. It also is the one where I think visually and acting wise, it might be the worst. Story wise, seems to be the worst. Gameplay wise, not nearly as good as The Quarry or Devil and Me. It has this weird thing when the people talk, it sounds like they're in a empty silo and it's really booming. And I'm like, did this game come out in quarantine and they just were like, yeah, record it on your phone, send us whatever in your basement. That is how I feel about this game. It's same thing as the other ones. Playing with the girlfriend, she makes all the decisions, and then I do like the quick time events and just walk around and stuff. What she loves to do is whenever there's like a couple that's fighting, she breaks them up in these games. She doesn't let them be together.
That sounds awful.
She doesn't let them be. Listen, in The Devil and Me, she may have killed one of the partners in one of the couples. Okay, that's all I'm saying. But
and you don't speak up at all. You just take it.
I just whatever.
Like, all right, this is where we're going.
There have been times where I've disagreed with the choices she makes, and then turns out I would have gotten them killed or something. I was like, wow, what do I know? That's so, yeah, having a good time. Probably going to wrap that up next couple of days because it's like 4 hours long. Crash Team Rumble. Got to touch on this. Playing a few more. I was playing a few matches before XTalk started. I like the game still. I think this game is really fun. I have issues with the matchmaking because people will leave during the loading screen and then you just get a bot. And if you get a bot on your team, you lose. I have not been on a team yet where if you have one bot, you can win. You will get absolutely demolished. There is no chance. The bot AI is just absolutely useless. And that is an incredibly frustrating experience because it basically am like, why should I stick it out? Like I might as well quit because there's no chance we're going to win. I'm also finding that I'm not very good at anything besides Dingo Dial. I don't get it. I don't know what to do. Like when I got my Dingo Dial, I go in, I mess people's stuff up, I steal their Wumpa fruits, I stop them from scoring. When I'm crashing Coco, I'm like running around the map. I'm like, all right, I guess I gotta go score now. But there's always people beating me up, and it's like I don't get how people do it, but I still like it. I think it's a ton of fun. It'd be more fun with more people. There was an article today that said it has less than 30 viewers on Twitch, so it's not setting the world alight. I still find games super easy, but hoping maybe it comes to a subscription service to revitalize the player base soon, but
You
we'll
kind of
see.
figured this was going to happen.
Yeah, I believe I told you if I get 10 hours of fun out of the game, I will have $30
Yeah.
I'll spend, and I think I'm at that point. I think Kyle might be downloading it and playing with me for a little bit, but it's still fun. It's just one of those games I'm like, oh, I got 20 minutes to kill. I'm going to hop in and play like a few matches because they are like 5-minute games.
Right.
And then the big one, not on Xbox, but I got to talk about it. Final Fantasy 16. Don't believe the hype, kids. I'm here to set the record straight. Final Fantasy 16 is not as good as the reviews are telling you, okay? Is it a bad game? No. Is it Game of the Year worthy? Absolutely not. This game has a lot of issues. All right? Sam, don't tell me I'll take, okay? Here are the good things about Final Fantasy 16. Story. Absolutely phenomenal. I love the story, the characters, the world, everything in Final Fantasy 16's narrative is fantastic. The voice acting, I didn't put it on Japanese, Ethan. I'm playing with the English, okay?
Good stuff.
The English, the acting is really, really good.
Oh, really?
Yes. Amazing. Absolutely amazing voice actors. I love it.
I won't change it.
No, they're killing it. There's nothing to change here. Ben Starr, and some of the early, when you first start it, you'll notice maybe some Amicia and Hugo voice actors reunited.
Oh, right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Visually, very impressive. This might be one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen, especially in cutscenes. It's a drop dead gorgeous game. That said, now we get into the negatives. I'm playing in performance mode. This game is struggling in performance. I don't think it's ever held 60 FPS. There are times where even with VRR, it is dropping excessively. I feel like the more I play the game, the worse it's getting. And I don't know if that's normal or what's going on there, but it definitely could use some patches to get that performance up. The side quests are pointless, absolutely useless, like terrible side quests. I've done a handful of them. They're fetch quests. The only ones worth doing are the ones that have the plus signs on them because those will expand your like I just did the one where you get more potent health potions, but there are ones that give you your chocobo, for example. And that is a big thing because that lets you travel around the map faster. Like you don't have to walk everywhere because you're slow as dirt in this game. Even with the chocobo, I'm like, I wish I could go faster, but it is better than walking everywhere. So they give you some quality of life features doing those side quests. But man, sometimes this game just bores me to tears. I played an hour and a half today after I got out of work before the show. I did nothing of consequence. It was like, yo, I want to open a shop downstairs. Can you go get me all this stuff? And then you just spend 20 minutes running around this way too big main hub talking to people. And then the one person's like, oh, I need this. Can you go to the field? So now I got to open my map, go to the field, go to the one area on the map, kill like one mob of enemies, and then go back and talk to them. And it's like, this isn't advancing the story at all. Like this is meandering. Like this should have been a side quest. Why is this in the main story? And there's a little bit too much of that. When the main quest is good, it's real good. But when it's not, it's like, I just want to get to the good stuff. I just want to get to the big, awesome set pieces. But my other complaint is that I think combat pretty shallow. It's mash the X button, dodge, spam your icon abilities, which are like, they look cool. Everything looks visually impressive, but after doing it for the 100th time, it gets a little repetitive, especially because the game follows a set linear. It's very linear. It's walk forward 10 steps, cutscene for 5 minutes, walk forward and fight a mob, cutscene for 5 minutes, walk for like it's, oh my Lord, man. At certain points, I'm just like, I can't do this tonight. I'm falling asleep, but I'm going to beat it. I like the story enough, but it's definitely not the Final Fantasy game I wanted.
Yeah, I think you saying that it's not the Final Fantasy game that you wanted goes along with a lot of what I've been seeing, and I think Kyle touched on it a little bit in the chat, talking about if you're looking for a JRPG and love JRPGs, avoid this game. So I wanted to ask you, how does this game hold up as an action game? I guess I should say, as opposed to a JRPG.
I think that's what's resonating with a lot of people that weren't Final Fantasy fans. Like I know Court Lalano, our friend over at Carpool Gaming, didn't like Final Fantasy, the other ones. He's
Hmm.
loving Final Fantasy 16. He can't put it down. So I think from an action game standpoint, it's gonna if you're more on that, like Ethan, I know you like the occasional JRPG,
Yeah.
but I think you might actually click with this game a little more than I am because it falls into more of that. If you just want to kill some people and like look cool
Right.
doing it, like you're gonna have a good time. I can't argue with that. I think I tweeted this on Twitter. I was like, the game would be a lot better if I could switch to my party members. Let me use Jill. Let me use this ice magic. Let me do some cool stuff. But instead, I'm like, I can only be as Clive. I can only use the abilities that the game gives me. I don't really have much choice in the matter of what's going on. And
So
it's
speaking of choice, what's the deal with any sort of customization of move sets or skills and abilities in combat? Is there a lot of different variants in that, or is it pretty cut and dry, like you were talking about, kind of just mashing buttons? Is there any other way to upgrade your weapons or have different abilities?
Uh, your weapons you will occasionally buy or go to the blacksmith and craft a new weapon. You have six pieces of gear. You have your sword and then your armor and then your bracers or whatever, and you'll upgrade those rare like every so often. You'll go and be like, oh, you have something new, or like, oh, I can buy something new. It's definitely not like, oh, there's a ton of stuff to craft, let me go like grind for materials to craft it. At least in my experience so far, i'm
Right.
i'm over halfway through the game. Okay, mind you, like I'm looking at the list, like I'm more than halfway done with this game. And then you have your accessory slots, which I will say there is one accessory, and shout out to Sam who told me to get this, the Berserker ring, which I think adds a different element to combat, helps us speed up a little bit. So when that becomes available, definitely grab the Berserker ring. Um, Other than that, it's like, oh, you can increase the power of a certain element, you can increase the attack speed or whatever, like little trinkets like that. For your actual moves, I will say that you get basically grids that match to the icon or the element. Like you start with fire and then you'll get like wind and electric and stuff. And in those you'll have like four-ish moves to choose from. You start with two and then you can unlock the other ones. And you have to upgrade them by with points that you'll get through combat. So you have to upgrade them, and I think you upgrade them one more time. And then once you master it, you can actually swap in and out into any icon. Like if I was set to the fire one, I can throw my mastered electric ability into that, even though I'm not on the electric icon right now. So you can make it a. It's still not super deep to me. I personally, I haven't really switched up much because I'm very much in the camp of like the fire is for doing damage, the wind is for getting that stagger bar down, because those are a lot of like quick attacks that don't do as much damage, but they melt the stagger bar, and then you switch to the other ones to kind of to do more damage wise. I don't know, man. I wanted a little more. It's not for me. I like it. I think it's a good game. I don't know if it's a good Final Fantasy game for people that maybe want like for if I was to pick, I almost I'd almost want 15s. Like go back to 15 and just put the story of this in there. Because I think this is a better story than 15, but I think the actual game design of 15 might have been better than this. And I don't know. I've been talking a while. I'm not the biggest Final Fantasy fan, mind you. All right. I prefer smaller JRPGs like the Tales series and the Trail series and all these other ones that aren't as mainstream, but it is what it is. Like I said, I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah, it just seems the opinions on this game run the gambit, and it's there's so much fluctuation. So I'm excited to jump into it and see what I
I
think of it.
like I said, I think you might like it. I think you might like because you like the more action focused gameplay. So that's what I got. Final Fantasy 16. And listen, if everyone's enjoying it, that's great. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Everyone I talk to seems to be enjoying it, except a few people who share similar thoughts to me. I know, but we'll leave it there and get into this jam-packed news we got here. So I'm not even going
Is
to
that
put
going to
up
be the new tagline instead of grab your book from the library? It's going to be
maybe,
the jam-packed news.
maybe,
That's got to be the thing now,
yeah, that
right?
might be it. Yeah, I'll spring that on Sam next week.
Beautiful.
Not going to put up the scrolling thing at the bottom because the only news story this week is the fallout from the FTC versus Microsoft legal battle currently going on. In case you didn't know, the FTC and Microsoft have spent the last week battling out in court over Microsoft's plan to acquire Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion. While we won't cover everything here because some of it is like, okay, we knew this or nothing really to say. We're not lawyers, okay? I picked out some tidbits that I think are incredibly interesting and give a little background of like, oh, this is how Xbox and them operate behind the scenes, or just some cool stuff we didn't know before. I will say all this information is coming via The Verge. Tom Warren over there has a great running list of everything that's been from day one onward. We won't be going in order, but I will be going wrapping everything up in a nice bow. So if that makes sense to everyone, let's get started. So they kicked off the case by saying, and this was Microsoft saying this, we've lost the console wars. We've been in third place for 20 years. It says PlayStation uses their split from selling Microsoft games on PlayStation 5 to get exclusives that hurt Xbox. The discussions about making ABK games and Minecraft games exclusive did happen. There was a strategic cost analysis done. Phil Spencer then says under oath that they won't pull Call of Duty from PS5. We also have a nice email exchange that we'll get to from Phil and Jim regarding ABK games going forward. So, in an email from Phil Spencer to Jim Ryan says, Jim, thanks for your response. As I stated to you in my emails and on our calls, Sony is an important distributor of Activision content, and we would like to find a way to maintain that relationship once we've closed the Activision acquisition. I continue to stand behind the written agreement I sent you on January 31st, 2022, with my signature memorializing our commitment to Sony. The agreement would keep all existing Activision console titles on Sony, including future versions in the Call of Duty franchise or any other current Activision franchise on Sony through December 31st, 2027. That includes content and feature parity, as well as making it clear that we would not feature any timed exclusive releases of such content on Xbox consoles. It's hard to align the principles set out in your email of May 26, 2022, with Sony's leading role in the market. As I said before, we believe that keeping these titles on Sony, as we did with Minecraft, is the right thing for the industry and for gamers. Jim responds in a much lengthier email going, Phil, thank you for your email. We agree that ensuring Activision Blizzard games are available on PlayStation is the right thing to do for gamers and the industry. However, Microsoft's original proposal did not fulfill this objective and left us with serious concerns that our counter proposal is designed to address. Far from being, quote, unusual, our counter proposal represents the minimum needed to respect gamers' interests and maintain competition. We believe that there are two fundamental principles that are critical to mitigating the potential negative impacts of gamers from the Activision acquisition. The first principle is that the commitment to availability of Call of Duty and other Activision games on PlayStation must be sufficiently broad to fully align with gamer expectations. To do the right thing for gamers, it is not enough to represent that a particular selection of older titles will remain on PlayStation. Rather, it is essential to agree that all Activision titles will be made available on PlayStation, irrespective of their original release dates or whether they can be classified as part of a particular franchise, just as the way they have been historically. And this commitment needs to be a lengthy one, not just a few years after the acquisition. Sorry, folks, keep with me here. The second principle is that in addition to addressing the scope of content available on PlayStation, the parties' agreement must address the manner in which these games will be made available. If Activision games are made available only on terms that are disadvantageous to PlayStation in comparison with other platforms, this could be tantamount to not making them available on PlayStation at all. As one example, making Activision games available on PlayStation after those games have been made available on Xbox would be contrary to the spirit of Microsoft's commitment to keep Activision games on PlayStation, as well as being unsatisfactory for gamers. With these principles in mind, let me briefly address the contours of our counter proposal. The first term of our proposal is designed to advance the first principle stated above, i.e., satisfying gamer expectations by ensuring that all Activision games are available on PlayStation. Please note that the reference to price parity relates specifically to the wholesale price on which PlayStation has offered Activision titles for resale. The second term of our proposal is designed to advance the second principle above. Unequal treatment of Activision games its subscription services would lead to unequal availability of the games. As long as you agree to the fundamental principle, Activision games should not receive unequal treatment on the party subscription services, we're open to further discussing the details of how this might be accomplished. The third term of our proposal simply recognizes the reality that upon completion of the Activision, it would not seem to make logical sense for the financial, marketing, and other arrangements previously negotiated between SIE and Activision to continue to apply in the post-acquisition world. We believe this common sense step is the benefit of both Microsoft and SIE. Regarding Bethesda, I was making a more general point during our discussion that the equal treatment of Bethesda games would be a logical subject for the parties to discuss because it involves some of the same concerns as the availability and or unequal treatment of Activision games. We would welcome discussing this subject as part of the agreement that advances the two fundamental principles discussed above. We would appreciate you confirming that these terms are acceptable as a framework for the parties to negotiate an appropriate written agreement. If you can confirm this, I'll instruct my team to get started immediately on preparing an agreement that can be finalized following negotiations with your team. All right, we're done with that email. We're gonna say pause there. Ethan, initial thoughts on this Xbox saying they've lost the console wars. PlayStation uses money they make off Xbox games to hurt them, and then this email between Phil and Jim. Any way you want to take it, we're gonna swing there.
First of all, that was a lot. We got a lot to break down, but I think it's cool that we get to actually see the emails between Phil Spencer and Jim Ryan. And can I just say I'm surprised? I thought it would be like lawyers talking to lawyers. I didn't know it would be like Phil Spencer emailing Jim Ryan directly, just talking over email. That's so strange to me. I'm sure these emails were filtered through 100 different lawyers and PR guys before it was sent off, but still, it's cool to see this sort of inner workings. The main points that I got out of both of these emails is that PlayStation does not want any Activision games on Game Pass unless they have some sort of deal where it goes on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. Mm-hmm. And I think that is smart for Sony to try and advocate for, because Microsoft has been very careful to say that we want to keep your games on PlayStation. We want to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation, but they've never gone so far as to say anything about we're going to put these games on Game Pass, right? They haven't been mentioning that. I think we all kind of figured that that would be the strategy here, is once we acquire Activision Blizzard King, Call of Duty would be on Game Pass. So that would attract more people to the Xbox platform, because you could get your yearly or bi-yearly Call of Duty installment and be able to play it for free instead of paying your $70. That's the big incentive to coming over to the Xbox ecosystem. So it seems like Sony is really trying to drive home that point, is we don't want this to be on unequal terms. We want if the game is going to be free on your platform, on your subscription service, then we're putting it on ours as well. If you're selling it for $70, we're going to sell it for $70, and that's how it needs to be. It seems like they want that inked out in writing in a contract. Also, they talk about the timed exclusive idea. They do not want timed exclusives. I think Phil Spencer in his email made that point, is we're not going to put any timed exclusive content. And I want to be clear here, this language is interesting. Let me go back to it and read it verbatim for us. Let's see, where are we? This includes content and feature parity, as well as making it clear that we would not feature any timed exclusive releases of such content on Xbox. Is he saying content in the sense of DLCs, skin packs, that sort of thing, or is he talking about video games as a whole? So I think there's still a lot of PR talk here that needs to be deciphered, but a lot of really interesting back and forth between them and different points that Jim Ryan is making to Phil Spencer, saying, hey, if we're going to get on board with this and sign a contract with you to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation, we need it to be fair and equal. I think Xbox has gone above and beyond to try and set this deal in motion. Interesting. We've been talking about this 10-year deal that was offered to Sony.
I was going to bring this up.
And the year that we have in the email is 2027, which would make that a 5-year deal. according because since the email was
It's from
sent out in
2022.
2022. I think that's interesting. I don't know if there was some miscommunication there, or if this was an older, or if this was before the 10-year deal was sent to Sony. Maybe that was the answer to this email back and forth. I don't know. I definitely want to see more details going forward, but it's interesting to see that maybe there was an older offer by Xbox that was a 5-year deal to PlayStation.
Yeah, I would love to see the list that Phil sent originally. Like the email before this email would be super interesting to see about, because Phil apparently laid out what Activision Blizzard titles would remain on PlayStation going forward, right? That would be super interesting to read, just so we can get an idea of like what are they thinking here with the Activision Blizzard acquisition? Is it, we know Call of Duty, they have no plans, according to Phil, at least till 2027, and then they brought up the 10-year deal later, which Call of Duty, I think, as we'll discuss later on in this, I don't see that going anywhere from a financial standpoint. Doesn't make sense. But the other version, the other games, I know Overwatch apparently was mentioned, and not Overwatch 2. That was one of the ones that was leaked. I would love to see the actual list. Like, was Crash Bandicoot on there? Was Diablo on there? Like
Tony Hawk.
What games were specifically mentioned? It seems they weren't sufficient enough for Jim Ryan to be satisfied. He wanted a more concrete, like, don't name franchises. Like, we're gonna need like every Activision game in writing going forward. Like, you're not going to take anything. He seemed very against the idea of like nothing is going to go exclusive. If you can agree to that, then we're going to we'll sign the deal. Like, everything will be good. From what it sounds like, Xbox can't make that promise.
Of course. And that makes sense because this is a competitive buy, right? Like, they didn't buy Activision Blizzard just to keep it as it is. They wanted to make it their own. They wanted to make them first-party Xbox studios. There's going to be some sort of exclusivity, and I think PlayStation needs to realize that this is business. PlayStation isn't making moves to put Guerrilla Games on Xbox. I mean, it's just how it works, right? Xbox is putting forward the effort to put certain games on PlayStation, keep them on PlayStation, but they have to realize that they're going to have to give up some.
I think one of the interesting things, when Phil was under oath, he said, I won't pull Call of Duty from PlayStation 5. And people were like, note the PlayStation 5 there. All right.
Yeah.
There's been, we're going to see a lot more of that as we go through this write up here, but there's been a lot of cheekiness with the way people are saying things in the courtroom. It's a little bit much for me personally. It's a little lawyer speak, I think, but I thought this email was super interesting. I thought it was very polite, especially considering the emails we're going to go through. Well, I don't know. We're about to read some emails, so this interaction didn't really surprise me all that much. It seems like they're both trying to fight for what they think is best for their platform, just like you would expect them to. So I think Jim Ryan comes across pretty well in this email. I know it's a big thing to dunk on Jim Ryan, but I don't see him doing anything wrong in this email. I think this was a very good showing, and him fighting for the PlayStation owners.
He's definitely advocating for the right things. I think specifically saying that if you're going to put these games on subscription services, we want to as well. Saying that there has to be sort of that coexistence there. I think that's a good thing to advocate for on his end.
Which is interesting, because we know from other leaked documents that came out months ago that Xbox was like, yeah, you can put it on PS Plus, and then they apparently quoted them a ridiculous price tag to do so.
Yeah.
So Oof. It doesn't seem like they're like, oh yeah, we'll give you what you want, and then they're like, not really though, you know.
Also, how ballsy is it for Xbox to sell off assets it doesn't even have yet? I mean, come on, that's cool.
Well, let's keep going. Well, let's keep talking about Jim Ryan, because Jim Ryan never believed the deal was about Call of Duty. In an unsealed email, CEO of Sony Computer Entertainment said, quote, it is not an exclusivity play at all. They're thinking bigger than that, and they have the cash to make moves like this. I've spent a fair amount of time with both Phil and Bobby over the past day, and I'm pretty sure we'll continue to see Call of Duty on PlayStation for many years to come. He also added that PlayStation, quote, had some good stuff cooking just days prior to their announcement of the acquisition of Bungie, and said, quote, I'm not complacent, and I'd rather this didn't happen, but we'll be okay. We'll be more than okay. This email was to Chris Deering, who responded to the email saying, quote, Phil Spencer was on CNBC saying that the acquisition would cement Microsoft as a player in mobile games. Strikes me as more of a King play than Call of Duty. But King sold to Bobby for $5 billion and has now grown to be worth $50 billion. If it was an Xbox exclusivity play, Spencer could lock up Microsoft console exclusivity for the next 3 Call of Duties released for maybe $5 billion. The major cash out will lure most of the talent to take the money and run as fast as their contracts will allow, leaving Microsoft with a very gnarly management challenge. I bet Yves is smiling like the Cheshire Cat. If this was a play to end run PS5, etc., I think it was massively overvalued and will not meaningfully succeed. I guess Microsoft can piss away that kind of valuation without being more harmed than helped, but I'm not losing a wink of sleep over the future of our baby. P.S. They would have been better off announcing a new electric car. Not quite as professional when they're talking internally, are they?
Of course
But we've heard for months PlayStation putting up this front that it was about Call of Duty. It was about taking away the exclusivity.
That was their big argument.
That was their big complaint to regulators.
Right.
And then you see Jim Ryan never believed that was a concern at all. So what are we making of this, Ethan?
I think we talked about this when this news first broke, however long ago this was, forever ago, right? And how one of the big things that was coming with this deal was King, and how much revenue that would generate for Xbox. And I know us as gaming enthusiasts, we're not really paying attention to the mobile market, but in reality, that's what's going to make them the most money, I think, here is buying King. So obviously, internally, they probably didn't see this as a Call of Duty thing. I think us as gaming enthusiasts, though, that's what we're mainly looking at because that's what our eyes are on. That's what's most exciting about this. That's what the contention is about, and that's what we're most exposed to instead of the mobile market. But just a lot of really interesting catty words there. I love to see it. Never don't open the Teams chat for the office. You know what I'm saying?
It's wild to me that they internally are downplaying this and almost Chris Deering is almost mocking the acquisition, saying that they're wasting their money. This isn't a threat in the slightest. Shout out to my cat meowing at the door. But then in public they give a much different front and are like, we can't let this happen. We need to protect the gamers. We need to protect Call of Duty on PlayStation. And it seems like they very much are taking we're going to try to play the regulators. And it goes back to that quote, I think, that we've heard, where I don't care about Call of Duty. I just want to block your merger, right? Jim Ryan apparently said that to someone in the courtroom. And it seems like that is the truth of the matter, where he finally told us what he actually thought. He just doesn't want the merger to go through. It is never about Call of Duty.
Yeah, because, I mean, at the end of the day, they are competitors, and you want to stop your competitor from succeeding. Maybe losing Call of Duty is not a big deal for PlayStation, but gaining Call of Duty is a massive deal for Xbox and getting people onto its platform. And I think that's what threatens them, and that's why they want to block this deal. Internally, of course, they're going to exude confidence. PlayStation's not going anywhere. Even if Xbox tomorrow were to say, Call of Duty going forward is exclusive, period. It's not on anything else. PlayStation's still going to be around. You still have great video game studios. You have great developers. You have great games coming out. They're not going anywhere. So I think exuding confidence like that is a good move, especially internally. You want to maintain confidence in your company and all that. But obviously, losing Call of Duty would be a blow, and they'd have to re-strategize. They'd have to reorganize their whole business model because they do make a lot of revenue off of Call of Duty.
Mm-hmm. I know they're giving closing remarks right now. Maybe I'll pop in and see what's being said as we go through this. But let's
just
keep
fights breaking out.
Let's keep it rolling, though. Pete Hines was up to the stand. He was questioned on his apology to Bethesda fans, apologizing for Starfield exclusivity. He stands behind the apology, saying that he just doesn't like when the fans are upset. In an email, though, in February 2022, shortly after Microsoft announced the ABK acquisition, Pete Hines expressed frustration directly to Phil Spencer about the strategy for Bethesda games, saying in an email to Phil, quote, "I'm confused. Is the below not the opposite of what we were just asked, parentheses, told to do with our own titles? What's the difference? Pete then posts the Xbox blog article where it says Activision games like Call of Duty will continue on PlayStation. Pete continues, quote, did anyone at Xbox think about giving us a heads up on this? Todd's going to DICE in a couple weeks. You don't think a journo might find him and press on why the below is okay for COD or ABK games, but not the Elder Scrolls 6 or Starfield or every future interview he does? Pete Hines, not happy man in this email. He seemed very frustrated, and I don't know whether it's frustration at the exclusivity of Bethesda going forward, because I will now bring in something we learned, and that was Phil Spencer and them actually had a meeting in late 20, I think, was it 2021 or 2022? I linked in the Discord. Either way, they had a meeting, and he said all future Bethesda games will be exclusive, and not just new IP. All future Bethesda games will be exclusive. So Phil kind of put his foot down. I think it must have been 2021, the end of 2021, and then this email happened in 2022, very early beginning. So Pete Hines, I think, is expressing frustration over perhaps the exclusivity of Bethesda, them being forced to make their games exclusive, and then the communication of them not being told that what the plan was with Activision Blizzard, because it does make things look like it's not a one well-oiled machine when you read this email.
And I don't blame him for being frustrated. I mean, you're working on this game for years and years and years. You're working on multiple games for years and years and years, and you have fans that are excited about it. And then you find yourself in a situation where you're kind of being used as a chess piece, right, in this battle between these two giant companies. Obviously, they probably looked at the acquisition as a great opportunity to get an influx of cash, to get some more backing for their projects, to give themselves a bigger platform in order to distribute their products. And then they were probably told one thing, and then it slowly turned into another thing, right? The business people got involved and things changed. Obviously, the creative people, they didn't get much say in what was going on in terms of exclusivity. So I don't blame him for apologizing. And I think it's honorable of him to stand by his apology. He probably legitimately was a little upset. He probably was told at some point, oh yeah, your games are still going to be on PlayStation, and it got pulled out from under him. So I don't blame him for being frustrated here.
Yeah. Barry Murray in the chat, thanks for hanging out. It says Jim Ryan looking for all ABK and Bethesda games off Game Pass is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I would agree.
It's a ridiculous ask. He obviously is obligated to ask that. Like, he's going to want the entire world. That's what I was saying before. He's going to have to make some concessions, and he's going to have to find the best deal for his company.
Yeah, I would love for Pete to be discussing this email a little more, perhaps. Try to explain whether he was frustrated about the exclusivity of their games, which he might be. Like you were saying, he very well could have wanted Starfield to come to PlayStation because he knows that they have fans for a long time over on those platforms. But the truth of the matter is, when you agree to these types of mergers and acquisitions, like, you are agreeing to do the strategy that your owner now wants. So you could be frustrated, but this email was a little aggressive for me personally.
And he had to have known that he can't get fired. Like, he's got to have something.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, he's sitting pretty in his office. He's like, they're not going to fire me. I can say this.
Yeah. One of the games we learned that will be exclusive before we knew, Phil Spencer apparently said November 2021. Here it is, that all Bethesda games going forward will be exclusive, was Machine Games' upcoming Indiana Jones game has been confirmed to be an Xbox and PC exclusive. Reportedly was originally multi-platform, but after the deal, Xbox went to Disney and changed the contract. So how are we feeling? We now know, we don't know what the game is yet, but Indiana Jones Xbox exclusive.
I'm excited. I think it's a big get. It's a huge IP, something a lot of people love. I'm excited for it. Obviously, we haven't seen enough about it. I think we're going forward. We're going to be looking for gameplay. We're going to be looking for different trailers, but we've seen next to nothing about Indiana Jones. But either way, big IP, big get, really exciting. I think we kind of figured that this was going to be an exclusive game for us. So
Absolutely. Barry, we're gonna keep going through it. Maybe we can answer this at the end after we've gone through it. He just wants to know what we think if it'll go through. We can we'll touch on that after we go through all the talking points,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we won't forget. Microsoft, this one's really interesting. Tried to buy other companies. They had their entire mergers and acquisitions list revealed. It was supposed to be redacted because the court, I think yesterday, got the
Yikes.
redacted version. Much like some PlayStation documents didn't properly get redacted. So there's a ton to go through, but Microsoft was keeping an eye on 100 plus companies based on Xbox Game Pass data, Steam stats, and their existing partnerships, including developers like Asobo Studios, Bloober Team, CD Projekt Red, Certain Affinity, Drinkbox, From Software, and so many more. They then had a document narrowed down, which revealed that Phil Spencer says they tried to buy Zynga to enter the mobile space. This ultimately ended up not happening, and Zynga was acquired by Take-Two. Microsoft bought Bethesda after hearing Starfield would be exclusive to PlayStation. So Bethesda wasn't really on that list ahead of time. They snatched them up after hearing PlayStation wanted Starfield exclusivity. Phil says, quote, when we acquired ZeniMax, one of the impetus for us is that Sony had done a deal for Deathloop and Ghostwire to pay Bethesda to not ship those games on Xbox. So the discussion about Starfield, when we heard that Starfield was potentially also going to end up skipping Xbox, we can't be in a position as a third place console where we fall farther behind on our current ownership. So we've had this to secure content to remain viable in the business. Microsoft was also looking to acquire both Bungie and Sega, according to internal documents. In an email from Phil Spencer to CEO Satya Nadella and CFO Amy Hood, Phil wrote requesting strategic approval to approach Sega Sammy regarding a potential acquisition of their Sega gaming studios, believing the acquisition would drive Xbox Game Pass subscriptions and help global appeal, specifically in Asia. Sega has since responded to that, saying they have a close and great relationship with Microsoft, especially the leadership team, but they're not interested right now and will continue to be independent. Other developers from this 2021 document called Developers to Watch List had A44, Bonfire Studios, Counterplay Games, Dreamhaven, Ember Labs, who we know from Kena Bridge of Spirits, Face Punch Studios, Fat Shark, Ghost Ship Games, who did Deep Rock Galactic and have since been acquired, Hazelight Studios for It Takes Two, Heart Machine, Hello Games for No Man's Sky, Moon Studios, they did Ori, Munfish, who did Atomic Heart, Proletariat, who actually Blizzard acquired, Striking Distance, who did the Callisto Protocol, and Team Cherry, who did Hollow Knight. All right, Ethan. Xbox is apparently looking at everyone. What are we thinking here?
I mean, this reads to me that Xbox just had a pile of cash and they went, all right, guys, what are we going to buy today? Like they just looked at the entire industry and said, what is the best deal for us at this time? And obviously this reads as the deals fluctuated throughout time. They were looking at different companies. They approached different companies. They said, how can this benefit us? I think the Bethesda move is a really great move. If they actually were hearing that Starfield was going to be a timed exclusive like Ghostwire Tokyo or Deathloop, I think that would have been really difficult for Xbox. If Starfield was a timed exclusive on PlayStation for a year, that would have been really, really tough to go through. I think they really flipped that on their head now, saying Starfield is now an exclusive. I think that's a great move by them. I kind of, in a way, would love an alternate universe where they just went after Sega and bought Sega instead of Activision Blizzard.
Me too.
And none of this stuff happened. No lawsuits, no nothing. We just bought Sonic. All right, Sonic's going to be Xbox exclusive. How cool would that be? But no, a lot of these studios that are on this list are really cool. Hazelight Studios would have been a huge get. I still think that would be an awesome studio to be acquired by somebody to get it out of the EA family. Hello Games, obviously I'm a huge fan of No Man's Sky. Munfish and Striking Distance are two studios that I think sort of have their foot in the door of making great video games, but Atomic Heart and Callisto Protocol, at least for me, didn't really hit their stride.
Oh, I didn't tell you, I love Callisto Protocol. I played that.
Oh,
I love
you're
it.
awful.
I love
Stop.
It. It's so good.
God, I hope Bree's not here. She's going to get really, really upset.
I said this last week. I enjoyed the Callisto Protocol more than Dead Space.
Okay, we're gonna move on. I think Xbox, though, buying those two studios would have really given them great financial backing. I think those two studios would do great in the Xbox ecosystem and make some really incredible games. God, Kevin, Dead Space. You're saying Callisto Protocol's better? Stop.
It's like an 8.5 at least, man.
Oh.
So their list of 100 developers for potential mergers and acquisitions, that is obviously a bit excessive. All right, that is looking at the industry as a whole.
Look at everybody. Yeah,
we're looking at everyone. We're seeing how they kind of are doing in the space at this time. They do narrow it down. They had a M&A final watch list where you can see things like Thunderful, who's the publisher that did the Gunk recently.
That would be such a cool get.
Supergiant is on there. Niantic, who does Pokemon Go. Playrix, I'm not familiar with. Zynga was on the list. Bungie was on that list. IO Interactive made the final list, which we now know the Project Dragon, that fantasy dragon game they're making, is a Xbox exclusive.
Yeah, which is wild. Not a studio I thought would be playing this sort of game or making this sort of game.
It's funny when you look at this list because I know a lot of people always speculated, like, what would Xbox's acquisitions be going forward? And I've always said Asobo makes so much sense. Asobo is one of the studios on their 100 list, but they didn't appear on any of the other lists. And in my mind, I was like, that's interesting to me that they didn't make like the final
Flight
cut
Sim,
because it seems like such a natural thing for them to do is acquire them. And then you have teams on that list that don't make any sense to me, like Ember Labs, who have only made a PlayStation game. You have studios like Moon Studios, which we know they made Ori for Xbox, but apparently that relationship has been strained. So this is from 2021. Perhaps this was made before all that went down. And then clearly they have teams that are like, okay, they're up and coming teams that we're going to keep an eye on, like Striking Distance, like Munfish. So it just goes to show you, which I think is super interesting, how deep they look at these type of things. It's not just who's the biggest person we can buy, who makes the best games. It's like, what can we do that will add value to our brand? What will they bring to us? Like, they broke down Sega in such a way. I was like, Sega makes so much sense. And I've always said, like, I would love Sega instead of Activision Blizzard. I've never been fussed if ABK goes through.
Fun.
It's interesting that Phil wanted Sega before Activision Blizzard. And I think if they get Activision Blizzard, there's 0% chance they can buy another publisher ever. I just don't see it happening. So then you would go to that list of 100 developers that they have, and they'd start picking up smaller studios. But there's some, it's so funny to know that they're looking like From Software. In what world, Microsoft, are you going to From Software?
Could you imagine? The makers of Bloodborne are now Xbox exclusives.
Yeah, I think some of these acquisitions would have upset a lot of people just because there's no history with Xbox. It would have seemed like a very much too aggressive for the industry. But then there are teams like here where I think they make a lot of sense, and it's good to know that, like, when we speculate about this stuff, we're not super far off. Like, if you
we're not crazy.
If you look at the industry. And if you look at the industry enough, like week in, week out, like we do, you can kind of get an idea of what people they might be looking at, like what you see those relationships developing. And Sam, I'm sorry. I didn't know you said I wasn't in Discord. He said part of Xbox's argument is that they want ABK in order to be more competitive. If Xbox gets ABK but remain in third place over the next few years, do you think that warrants another acquisition, medium large publisher? No, I do not. I do not think they should be allowed to buy any more publishers if they get Activision.
No. I don't think they would be able to.
All right, let's keep rolling, Ethan, after this sweet acquisition news. Oh, also, fun fact, Ninja Theory cost them $117 million.
What a steal.
What a
great studio, dude.
What a steal.
I'm so excited for Hellblade 2. Stop it.
What a steal. Oh, another one I didn't mention. Microsoft consider acquiring Square Enix in 2019 to bolster mobile portfolio.
We've not been talking about this forever, that they're trying to buy Square Enix.
No, PlayStation.
Like rumors come up all the time. Oh,
PlayStation.
That would make sense. That would make sense.
It's funny because Square Enix is like, you get one game a year, Xbox, if you're lucky, and Microsoft's like, well, if we just buy them, and then they bought Bethesda instead, obviously.
Better deal.
Okay, let's go over to Slimeball Bobby Kotick. He took the stand. He said,
"Scumbag."
Quote, Activision isn't interested in Game Pass. I have a general aversion to the idea of multi-game subscription services. Maybe part of it's being in LA and having large, big media companies move their content to these subscription services, and the business results have suffered. He confirmed he wouldn't put Call of Duty on a subscription service, and currently Activision is generating no revenue from these kinds of services. Says there's no plan to put games on streaming services. I will throw it over to you, Ethan.
Move along, Bobby Kotick. We already know you're a fossil of the industry and nobody wants you here. I can't wait until you're fired. You clearly have no grasp on reality of the industry, and you're also a loser of a human being. So I don't care what he has to say.
When I was reading this, I was like, you're trying to get this acquisition to go through, right? Sitting here and being like, I don't like Game Pass isn't really the best.
You're trying to
way
line
do
your
it.
pockets with gold right now. Listen, Call of Duty is essentially a live service game at this point, right? I feel like the yearly installments are just updates. It's just different maps, different looking characters, different skins, battle passes, all that sort of thing. Call of Duty is just a live service game. You put a live service game on a subscription service, it's going to increase that player base by a lot, by threefold, fourfold, maybe even, right? And all those people are going to be buying battle passes, buying skins, buying weapons, buying different stuff. Call of Duty just makes sense to be on there, as much as it makes sense for Fortnite to be free to play or Fall Guys to be free to play, right? It makes sense for Call of Duty to be free to play.
Now, I bought Fall Guys. It wasn't free to play back in my day.
I did too, Kevin. I own it on PC back in the day, all right? And it's worth it.
So, Bobby, this is one of the quotes that I'm like, I don't think he's telling the truth here. Because he says, and I have a perfect example. He says we wouldn't put Call of Duty on a subscription service. The day he announced that, Call of Duty Cold War was announced to be coming to PlayStation Plus. He also says we're not generating any revenue from these kind of services. Last I checked, you get paid to put your games on PlayStation Plus. You've had Crash Bandicoot 4 on PlayStation Plus. And I know this is the essential tier. It's not the extra, so it's not that game catalog. But that is a subscription service, Bobby. I don't know what you're talking about. You have made money off of things like PS Plus.
I wonder if he's specifically talking about new games, like day and date stuff. Because Cold War is, what is it? The 2 Call of Duties back, 1 Call of Duty back. I think remember.
It's 2. I think it's 2.
2. Yeah. So they might just be throwing it on there to give it a sort of second life, if you can do that. So I don't know if he's specifically referring to new games like Modern Warfare 2, but either way, not putting those games on Game Pass or PlayStation Plus is a huge loss. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it made no sense to me because it's like you realize hours before that you announced this, but another person also doesn't like, and I forgot to include this in the notes. So Sam, I still think it's a poorly worded day and date reference. Yeah, it very well could be. He could be talking about putting Call of Duty or their games in day and date, but he didn't say that. He sounds very dumb in court.
Surprise!
He's not the only one that doesn't like Game Pass, though. Jim, like I said, Jim, if I'm lying, I'm dying, Ryan said. He's talked to a lot of publishers and they, quote, unanimously do not like Game Pass because it is a value destructive.
What are you talking about? I've heard maybe 1 or 2 publishers complain about Game Pass. I've heard nothing but praise, especially from small publishers or small developers and indie developers.
Jim's talked to them all.
Oh, Jim's talked to them all.
He talks to publishers all the time. And
Turnip Boy commits tax evasion. They lost a ton of money on that game.
They don't like it. They don't like it. It's funny because immediately after that, we saw, I think 11-Bit said that they just signed a deal to put all their games into Game Pass. I know No More Robots. They're an indie publisher, but they like Game Pass very much. Annapurna's putting games in Game Pass. Devolver has games in Game Pass. Publishers kind of seem to like it's a
Ubisoft, Square Enix, all these huge publishers are also putting their games on Game Pass.
There are 100% publishers and developers that don't like Game Pass. I will admit that. Take-Two, I think, is a perfect example of a publisher that doesn't really like subscription services. And why would they be when they can sell 100, 200 million copies of GTA, right?
There you go.
Like they don't need the subscription service.
Right.
But to say that all publishers unanimously don't like subscription services, you sound like an idiot.
And if you're saying that, then why are you promoting your subscription service?
Yeah.
What's so special about yours that all of a sudden publishers are like, I like this one. I
don't like Game Pass, but BS Plus.
Yeah, good stuff.
Nonsense. Yeah, I can't believe he said that, especially when there's
tiers.
there's documented evidence of publishers that do like the service and developers that do like the service. And Jim, if you're lying, you're dying, but rest in peace, I guess.
R.I.P.
I took "If You're Lying, You're Dying" from Kyle, by the way. He says it all the time, and he usually says it about things when he's lying.
But he's lying.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to talk to him. You okay, Kyle?
PlayStation did a bad job redacting some documents. It was revealed that the current deal for ABK games run out in 2024, and does not include the Call of Duty release in 2024. So this year would be the final marketing deal for a Call of Duty. Also shows that Call of Duty earns them $1.5 billion worldwide. And they revealed that 1 million PlayStation players play nothing but Call of Duty. 100% of their playtime is Call of Duty.
I knew those people existed. I didn't know to the extent of those people existing. That's pretty interesting. And that's a lot of customers that you would lose if Call of Duty became exclusive, which it's not. But that's a lot of revenue. Just some cool internal numbers. I like to see it.
Yeah. Listen, PlayStation can break down the other redacted numbers, all right? Like The Last of Us and Horizon costs over $200 million and take 4 or 5 years to make. Yeah, we knew this, okay? Like, I didn't understand why everyone was freaking out about it. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. To the people that exclusively play Call of Duty, there are other games. I cannot imagine spending
those people are not listening to our podcast.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was just saying, I can't imagine spending $500 plus to just play Call of Duty. Yo, shout out to my cat at the door.
And just imagine the amount of adventures that they would love to go on that they just don't experience. That's sad to me.
I can't even imagine. Last point here, and then we'll probably go over to closing arguments. They're wrapping up. Satya Nadella wants to get rid of exclusives? ? Quote, if it was up to me, I would love to get rid of the entire exclusives on consoles, but that's not for me to define, especially as a low share player in the console market. The dominant player, Sony, there has defined market competition using exclusives, so that's the world we live in. I have no love for that world.
I don't know if I agree with getting rid of exclusives. I get the argument for it because you want everybody to experience every game. And I am a multi-console player. I have all 3 major consoles, right? So I get to experience this wide swath of games. But I think exclusives give consoles that identity, right? It gives you that sense of community. When you think of Xbox, you think of Gears of War, you think of Fable, you think of Halo, right? That's kind of big. When you think of PlayStation, you think of God of War, you think of The Last of Us, you think of Horizon, you think of Spider-Man. That builds that sense of community. And obviously you think of Nintendo, you think of Mario, right? Zelda, Kirby, all these games. You have to have those exclusives to build that identity and to build that player base and that fan base and that sense of community. I love exclusives for that point. I understand the argument against exclusives, and he is somebody that's not really super in the game industry, right? So maybe he doesn't quite understand that connection that we make with those consoles that us gaming enthusiasts really, really love. So exclusives, you got to stay. I don't think it should be ridiculous where every game that comes out on Xbox is only Xbox and vice versa for PlayStation. There has to be third party, but you got to have that identity, right?
It's funny that people get so worked up about exclusives, because if you actually look at the breakdown per year, like what Xbox said that they first party wise want to put out 4 first party games a year, and PlayStation I think have said 2 first party games a year going forward. So that's a total of 6 first party games that like you wouldn't be able to play if you only had one console. The vast majority of games are not exclusives. I think the problem, and maybe this is what Sadia was getting at, but he didn't say it very elegantly, was third-party exclusives, where you have PlayStation and Xbox signing deals where only third-party games will come to their platform. And right. Ghostly March brings up Nintendo. Nintendo has the best exclusives anyway. Wow. Okay. Who are we to disagree? We're just doing some podcasting.
I almost agree.
I think a lot of people would agree with that. Yeah, to be fair, but
yeah,
I don't think exclusives to me are what you consider when you are like, okay, which appeals to me more? I'm going to buy the box. But I think other than that, like if you don't care about either first party exclusive, you're probably just going to go whichever one is cheaper or whichever one your friends have. I think we're getting less exclusives these days than we had in the past.
Oh yeah.
But
definitely.
People like to really narrowly focus on exclusives. Like Square Enix is such a big talking point. I'm like, yes, that's one company that seems to really favor PlayStation. But again, like I said, when they bring games to Xbox, nobody's buying them. I'm buying them. Nobody else buying them. So I don't agree with Sadia and Nadella, first of all. I think exclusives are important to the industry. I think it helps give each brand a sense of identity.
Yeah, of course.
And I would like to see that continue forward. But in terms of third-party exclusives, I'd like to see those go away for sure.
Yeah. And like, imagine a world with no exclusives. Why would we even watch showcases? Yeah. Like we'd watch the Xbox showcase and it's like, great, we'll just see the same thing for the PlayStation one. Who cares? Like,
yeah. Let's now an update from Xbox. This is the PlayStation showcase.
What?
Closing arguments are happening right now, everyone. FTC went first. I've been reading it over. There are a few funny tidbits that I like to point out. So the judge wanted to know what harm to consumers would happen if the merger went ahead and whether we'd be here if Sony had a deal with Microsoft for Call of Duty. The FTC said if the merger goes forward and if you believe that Microsoft has the incentive to advantage its own platform, there will be content, there will be timing issues, there will be exclusivity that benefits Xbox and not PlayStation. Judge said, aren't we talking about Call of Duty? Sony just acquired another publisher and they make a lot of stuff exclusive. You've told me this has really always been about Call of Duty. How's that going to drive? If Sony had a deal with Microsoft for Call of Duty, would we be here? FTC says, I think we would still haven't had an investigation. Judge Corley, that's good, but here on a preliminary injunction, FTC says, we would be here because of concerns about the other markets. Judge Corley says, outside the console market, okay, that's fair. He also asked if there was a Bethesda game comparable to Call of Duty. The FTC responds, The Elder Scrolls.
Bro. Oh, FTC, what are you doing?
I don't think they know what the Elder Scrolls is if they think that is comparable to Call of Duty. Oh, man.
We don't even need to break down why that's a silly statement. If you're listening to this podcast, you know video games. That's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life to compare those two.
The judge says Dr. Bailey, who testified for Microsoft, quote, actually looked at real-world data, and she wants to know what the FTC's witness, Dr. Lee, looked at. Wow, not going great so far here. The FTC struggles to respond and references Jim Ryan's testimony instead of answering the question related to Dr. Lee. That's not what I asked, says the judge. Ooh, yeah, and I think Ariel in the chat says FTC's argument getting unraveled. Yeah, it's not going great from just the quick scrolling I'm doing here. Third FTC lawyer tries to explain Xbox switching. What is that? What are even going on here? Okay, they're doing closing arguments. It's not going very well. The judge seems to be making a mockery of the FTC, and the FTC's obliging. So
I said this months ago. Xbox has a case, and they just need to fight for it. And here we are, seeing the fruits of their labor. It's beautiful.
We're stuck on a basic question. Judge Corley wants to know some basics, whether Dr. Lee's report was based on telemetry, real data of how people play Call of Duty. The FTC is now referencing confidential data and struggling to answer. Okay, so
here we go.
I know Barry at the start of this wanted to know whether we think the deal will go through. Well, after hearing everything the last week, I think the FTC's case is very weak. I think we all knew that. I do not see the judge granting the injunction to stop this. So this very well could be a case of Microsoft pushes this merger through in the next couple of weeks. They still have to go to the CMA in July, but they can close without CMA approval. They can just push it through and then deal with the markets over there. But I'm very much in the yes camp. I think this is going through.
Yep, I would agree. It's sounding like the United States is going to approve this deal. Yeah, that last hurdle with the CMA is just the thing that we need to worry about. But it's good to hear that they could still do the deal even without CMA approval. I didn't know that. I'm not privy on business law. I don't really.
Yeah, they just won't be able to sell the games in the UK or something. I don't know.
Sorry, Sam.
That's some nonsense.
You don't care anyways.
Microsoft can't sell them. I think they could, like the Activision games, can still be that. I don't know. It's a whole thing. I'm not a CMA lawyer. All right, I just eat pizza and talk on a podcast. But
Sam, go over there and talk to him. Tell him to stop. Let's just regular.
All right. Yeah. Final regular show. Where can people find you if they want to chat with you, though?
In the Discord. I'm not leaving. I'm still sticking around. You'll see me on different shows. I'll fill in. I'll be on live reacts. I'm not going anywhere, folks. So stand by.
And you can find me at the Muffin Mon on Twitter, 1-7I, 0-7A. Follow us at Save Game Media. And everyone, like I said, subscribe. Get those ratings in over on Apple, Spotify, and tweet them at us or throw them in the Discord to enter for a Ultimate Edition of Starfield digitally. I will send it to you days before release so you can play early, but I need to see those reviews. So let me see it, and then you'll be entered. Until next week, when we have Jam Pack Sam joining us for the very first time.
So excited.
Goodbye.